Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Williams, here at the Talon. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yep, I'm Joseph Williams. I'm the Executive Director of Technology for the Perris Union High School District. Prior to this position, I was a high school English teacher teaching struggling readers and writers, and I became a literacy coach, coaching teachers on literacy, and then an instructional coach, coaching teachers on instructional methods in all disciplines, and then became a technology coach that focused on using technology for instruction. And then I wrote the Scholar Plus Teaching and Learning Plan here in the district that one of the aspects of it was providing Chromebooks for all students, full take home. And then I got appointed to this position as the director. So really what I tell people is they put the teachers in charge of the tech department. Sometimes that's not part of the thing there. A little bit more about myself. As prior to education, I was in heavy equipment and demolition. So I have project management experience and an experience with business. And another last part of the aspect of myself is as a running for the Board of Governors. I'm part of the Association of California School Administrators here in Riverside County. And I've been the Vice President of Legislative Action for our charter and for our region. And I'm part of the Ledge Policy Committee on working with politicians. And I'm now an at-large board member. And so I'm pretty familiar with how a board should govern.
Where did you study? Like, what's your educational background?
It's a good question. It's a good question because when I meet other technology directors, it's unique that I have a degree in literature and writing. And so tech directors will think, well, that's strange. But I think that the humanities and that type of field has done me well. Being able to move people and to challenge beliefs and to dismantle previously held beliefs and to work with people and to communicate effectively and to make people feel at ease with change. So I have a bachelor's degree in literature and writing, although I am in charge of the most technologically department in the region. And I also have my single subject teaching credential in English. And I also have a supplementary authorization for computer concepts and applications, which would not be surprising. And I have a lot of strength in the humanities, and I have a lot of strength in the engineering and technology pathways.
Where did you get your credentials? Like, where was your education held? Was it like what college?
So local, Cal State San Marcos. You know, it was an awesome school. When I decided to career change and leave heavy equipment, it was sort of a shock for some of the people that worked for me. Like, why, you know, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, I'm going to become an English teacher and teach high school students that are struggling. And for a day, they probably thought that was strange. And then afterwards, they thought, no, that actually makes sense. You've been teaching us all along. And so I was living in San Diego County at the time, and went to Palomar College for 2 years. It was an awesome experience. There are things that Palomar College have that I want to make sure Msjc has, like student health and all that kind of stuff. So I'm bringing that in. So I went to Palomar College, I got the 2 years under my belt, and then transferred over. Great. I'm glad that colleges have transfer programs. Transferred over and knew that I was going to get my teaching credential there also. So Cal State San Marcos is a local college, and it's my home.
This past June, Msjc released the new Equity Pledge, committing to support the diversity of its students and communities. What has Msjc done since then to support the pledge's commitment, and what can we expect in the near future, such as have they addressed stereotypes, changing rules/regulations, restructuring criteria?
So I guess it's lucky for me that I do kind of have firsthand knowledge what Msjc has done since the proclamation. And I just want to be clear, like I am an anti-racist educator. And it's been my work since becoming a teacher. And we do need to dismantle these systems. And what Msjc has done has also been very public. UMOJA has been hosting events. The LGBTQ has been hosting events. And although they're online, there's been a good participation. And how Msjc has been doing that also is in those events, you should be proud that you have some really good mentors at MSJC that are in there, like Vaughn and like all these people that are in there and they're doing the work. And so MSJC is not just doing the policy work behind the scenes, but they're doing very public work. And what it sort of means is the policy work behind the scenes is sometimes districts or colleges will put out that statement, but their actions haven't changed. And it doesn't translate to their values. I guess the next step that I would have them to do is, and I might not just know, is that the next step would be the budget. Because your budget translates to your values. And if we really want to be equitable and dismantle these systems, we need to have our money where our mouth is. And MSJC has been doing a fantastic job. I love the statement. I happen to be in our district, helped our district craft and our superintendent craft our letters for support of Dreamers when DACA was very big in the public. And then after the through the Floyd thing, we crafted a message about our support. And so I have some experience at that level at our district doing that also.
I've noticed that a lot of MSJC faculty, for example, like they say they are, but then they, like, for example, I have a physical disability, which makes me to walk with crutches. And they have, and a few of them, they have been discriminatory. So like lashing out for no reason, or they have been, they have been really like rude and just really really, I don't want to say mean, but just really disrespectful towards me for no reason, because I'm a biochemistry major, and that's into STEM, and I'm the president of Hope and STEM Honor Society for MSJC, for our chapter, starting this year. And some of them they overlook, some of them they just outright insult. What advice do you have to give MSJC faculty on that?
Thank you for sharing that. That's pretty powerful. And I like the way you frame the question on how you address that, because sometimes when people are trying to change behavior, and that behavior is totally wrong, it needs to be changed, you need to reach that person, and that person does need to change their behavior. First of all, it needs to be called out. So I, as a white person with white privilege, I need to call it out, and I need to name it. And you need to make sure that, I'm using, that I'm also allowing, and I learned this in I observed a very public incident that happened just like yours, but I wasn't the host of the meeting. And so I was kind of curious on how that was going to play out. And what I noticed was that the host of the event did name it, did call it out, and did provide the person the opportunity for an out. So we didn't back them totally into a corner. So it's extremely important. And if you read Kendi's book on anti-racism, he's got some great advice for people like me, like how do you call it out? And why it's important, and I love the part of the question that with the faculty, is if I love Dr. Schultz. I have a lot of confidence in him, and I love his cabinet. And the executive directors and directors, and I think you have mentors that have your best interests and are anti-racist educators. But how are we going to change these people at MSJC? So why that's important is that Roger Schultz and his cabinet needs a strong board of trustees that can support him in that. When the going gets tough and they fight back, he needs to know that the trustees are 100% behind his vision. That is the level that a trustee should support. So the trusteeship only really has one employee. That one employee is the superintendent. They hire and fire the superintendent, and they evaluate the superintendent. So that's their one employee. And that superintendent, or that president of the college, needs to know that we support him, that we're behind this, we're behind the equity statement, we're behind Dreamers, we want to dismantle this. And if he feels that we have his back, he's going to be able to power forward, because it's going to be difficult, as you know, it's going to be difficult to change hearts and minds, but you have to be unwavering. And I have an unwavering commitment to it. I can have the receipts to show you the work that I've done. But I'm going to tell you, and people should not, why it's a great question is people should not discount that how difficult change is, especially in the divisive politics that are happening now. Change is going to be very difficult. We're going to need a board member who can help splice together this division. We have to. And so my position would be, one, I'm going to share my values. One, I'm going to practice my values. I'm going to emulate my values. And as a board of trustee member, I'm going to make sure that the president and his cabinet knows that we have his back and we have their back. And if they need to address a faculty member that's done this, we support them. But one of the things that I can tell you, I don't know when your article's coming out, so I don't want to reveal this to the other people that are running against me, but I am going to ask, when I get elected, I'm going to work well with the board, and I'm going to ask the board to task Dr. Schultz and his cabinet to research how the student trustee can have a real vote on the board. And so imagine that there was, here's an example. I watch your board meetings and I've seen your board meetings and I've been to your board meetings. A trustee had put forward to make election day, and this is pre-COVID, election day, the actual day, a non-school day. And it got voted down. So had there have been a student trustee vote, that might have gotten approved. And so that's what a board person should do, is help establish the policy, and then back them on the policy. And so it is difficult. And as you get more experience with how boards work, like I'm one vote, I can't get things done unless I have the support of the board. Even the support of a board member who might have said something that they should not have said and was called to task on that. I need to be able to sway that board member that yes, we believe in Dreamers, we believe in DACA, we believe in the equity statement, we believe in the exercise of rights for voting, and we want to remove the barriers for voting. And we also need to make sure that we don't sweep things under the rug. If there's something that happens and it's embarrassing, we just have to own it. We just have to own it and move on. But hiding it and not talking about it is not helping anybody.
What do you think about MSJC? Because I've heard when I was at a Latinx event regarding Fabiola Torres, she was one of the speakers, and we spoke a lot. I loved that event. We spoke a lot about performative ally, and I also brought up this question that what do you think about MSJC being a performative ally? And I would like to ask you that question because I've heard that a lot from faculty, because some faculty, they're in fear of the leadership. They're in fear.
Yeah, I was at that event also.
I put some things on. You probably heard me.
Yes, I was there. And Fabiola was awesome. And so this is a big danger that brands and companies, you know, they're reading the tea leaf, so to speak, and they're like, hey, we need to perform this because otherwise we're going to get a lot of grief. And on social media, a lot of times they'll get called out where people will say, oh, really? You know, you've tweeted out this thing, but yet your hiring practices are X. And so that's why I'm telling you, our actions directly translate to our values. So performative is the perfect word. If you're just performing something and showing something, but your actions speak otherwise, then I'm just going to say, I'm sorry, your actions speak otherwise. And until your actions, and I'm going to help you change. I'm going to be pleasant as a board member, but our actions translate our values. And if you're just performing something, it's pretty obvious. You know, some people will do other things. They'll do like virtue trolling, right? They'll put stuff out there and they're like, oh, look how virtuous I am. And you're like, but I've seen your actions and I've seen the other stuff that you're doing. So it really holding each other accountable. And I'm sorry that, you know, you're going through that. And I hear it. I know that we've had struggles here in our district when the government was pushing back on Dreamers and all that kind of stuff. And it's tough and it's tough and we do address it. And I agree.
Are there any plans to represent and support other minority groups such as Native Americans, Asian and South Asian groups, and American Samoans. So also like besides white, black / African American and Latinx, because
Yeah.
they're not getting enough attention within MSJC, and I wish, like that could be possible.
So I had the luxury of having two professors at Palomar College that were Native American. They were sisters, and they're from the Luiseno band of Indians, and they teach history over there, and so that's a great foothold in the college, and yes, we need to address that. As you know, this land was the Luiseno tribe all the way to Diamond Valley Lake to where we're building a new high school. This land here was probably like the transitory hunting grounds when they were going to somewhere else. And so there's evidence of this land, and there's evidence of this land with Mexicans, and evidence of this land having a rich history of sort of a rich history in this region, and it needs to be celebrated, needs to be honored. And I can tell you that as a board member, that would probably be a superintendent evaluation point, right? So, it's not up to board members to say, do this and do this and do this. It's up to us to set the values and the mission. And so we would make that as part of Dr. Schultz's evaluation, and probably his own self-evaluation. If you and I brought to him and said, maybe we're not doing enough on this, I'm sure that him and his cabinet would take that to heart and say, you know what? Let's do something about it, and let's make sure that it's not performative, that our actions do speak.
What can students expect from MSJC in 2021 in regards to online learning and the pandemic?
That's a good question, and that is right in my wheelhouse. So not only am I a teacher, but I also coach teachers, I also coach teacher coaches, and I also run the tech department. And so my proposal is that that MSJC sort of think of it in the terms of an innovation roadmap, because all of a sudden we went to distance learning, and there were some people that were prepared and some people that weren't. And I've spoken with some of the faculty about how they're handling that. So, but one of the biggest issues, if you happen to read I think it was the LA Times or the New York Times article, and even the event yesterday about the disparity that this has laid bare, is that students don't have access to technology. They don't have access to the internet. So you could build the most engaging online coursework. You could follow the best pedagogy. You could use research-based instruction. And that's what I would do all that. Make sure that those are engaging coursework, and that when we do come back to some hybrid, that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, that we still use those engaging things. But we need to remove barriers for students' enrollment. I have heard that, and I'm not blaming counselors or staff, because they work hard. Bertha, they work very hard and they do good work. But I've heard from students that there were some barriers to enrollment. There were some barriers to student aid on how they got that done. They weren't sure their application was completely done or what bucket was in. So we have to remove those barriers. But I believe that access to technology and access to internet is a civil right. Some people will say it's not a civil right. They'll say it's a way to exercise your civil right. Like, so you use technology for that. But I would disagree. And COVID-19 has laid that bare. Because in order to be a full participant citizen in this country right now, how are you going to fill out the census technology? How are you going to get your application, your absentee ballot technology? How are you going to do telehealth, right? Some of these people aren't leaving home. How are you going to communicate with your family? So I would say that MSJC will need to do better work there. I was a part of that. My district donated 50 Chromebooks to the college. To on loan to use how they wish. We had put them in a mode that anybody can access them and use them. And I would ask the college to make sure that we're providing opportunity and access. So what the students should expect is whatever the learning should be. It should be highly engaging. It should be highly relevant. It should help them in their post MSJC life, whatever that be. That needs to be there. But if we don't have that access, and and also when it comes to access for accessibility for disabilities, we need to build into those courses. We need to build into those courses screen readers. We need to build those in for every student.
Will we see more technological integration and training with Canvas and other software used by the school? Will there be more physical equipment and supplies provided to students, such as chemistry or biology lab kits?
Yeah, so that is actually part of the idea for the innovation roadmap. So, you know, you guys got the new Temecula campus that's going to be built, but as a college, Msjc needs to take into account the technological advancements that are going to be at the college, and that needs to get all the way out to the Banning and the Pass campus. And so there needs to be an appropriate blend of technology and hands-on. You can't let technology get in the way with your humanity. It can't always be a technology solution. Myself as a tech director, how many times do I tell people, don't use technology for that? That is a human interaction. So what they would expect is they would expect that if they're creating coursework and pathways that are relevant, you're going to have, like, you know, the medical field, you're going to have the humanities, you're going to have engineering and bio. You're going to have those pathways that are directly relevant to whatever you're doing. And they do need to make sure that they provide not only state-of-the-art equipment for your bio, for your engineering, but also those hands-on practicum moments. If you're going to go on in whatever you do, you're going to have areas where you're doing simulations, and you're going to have areas where you're not doing simulations. You're doing it live. And there are models that MSJC could look at. They could look at the recent Cal State San Marcos School of Nursing. They did a really good job of having these simulations for, like, birthing and all this stuff. I'm not into that, but my wife is a midwife, and so she likes that stuff. But they also had real world experience out in the field. So yes, they would expect they're going to have state-of-the-art technology. That would be a big expectation of mine. But they need to not lose sight of the back-to-basic hands-on kits, hands-on real-world experience.
What can MSJC do for students and teachers struggling to balance life and school at home because of distractions they can't avoid? How can the Board of Trustees improve on this to make sure students and teachers have the motivation and support needed to achieve success?
You know, that's a good question. And the example was something that sort of caught me off guard, and I had to talk to other faculty members about it. There were faculty members who had actually, and I don't know if they did this on their own on their contract, but they had actually sort of made their lecture time online more of two things. One of them, they put it in Canvas, they pre-recorded it, and you could pick it up at any time. So it was a pick up at any time. But when they did need some direct lecture and interaction, they didn't just stick to this time that was on the allotted schedule, because it was supposed to be a face-to-face. They had their students actually say, well, what other time would you propose? And that's some flexibility that you usually don't see, I think, in college professors. So at first I was like, well, how would that work? If I signed up for the 8 a.m. class and now you're not offering it at 8 a.m. because they all overruled me, like, but this professor created a kind of a democratic situation. So with an innovative roadmap, the student user experience is absolutely the most important thing. That we're not just building these courses to benefit the professor. We're building these courses to benefit you all, and to have flexible learning opportunities where a lot of it you can do asynchronously. If you do have to do something synchronous, that you build some flexibility into that. And I can tell you another thing, I didn't think of this until it was mentioned yesterday in an event, and I need to research it more about, so like grading practices and eligibility, and how the college will need to be relaxing, like, let's just say things are really bad at home and the student needs to take a semester off. And they don't want to lose their eligibility, and they don't want to lose their place in line for priority enrollment. And maybe they need to take a year off because they need to get their stuff together. They don't want to lose their priority enrollment, and they don't want to lose that academic eligibility. And so we need to be more flexible in that, and really realizing that this has affected lives. And I can tell you, there's a saying that steal from Jamie Cassip. He was a ed tech guru for Google. And he always says that education can change the trajectory of families in one generation. So we can't afford to lose students that want to come back. We got to make sure that we welcome them back.
Thank you so much for joining us here at the Talon, Mr. Joseph Williams. And what area are you running for again?
MSJC Area Trustee 1. It is Banning, Beaumont, Calamasa, Idlewild, Anza, and Temecula. It's about 100,000, 90,000 voters in the largest geographical region.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us once again. And guys, this is Mahak Tiwari, Talon Co-Editor, for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you.